Ricky, let's move into our top 10 for the starting shooting guards of 2018-2019. Like last time, we are going to give our personal rankings. I'll do Dave's.
Jeez.
So you can give. Actually, I'll do Dave's first. Then we'll do yours.
All right.
Then we'll do mine, and then we'll do the true one. So
Okay.
Dave at 10 had Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets. Then at 9, he had Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. Then at 8, he had Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. At 7, which I think is way too low, he had DeMar DeRozan of the Toronto Raptors. See, I can make those rebuttals because I'm reading his, and he's not here. Suck it, Dave. Then at 6, he's got Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. Then at 5, he's got Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. Then at 4, he's got CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers. At 3, he's got Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers. At 2, he's got Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. And at 1, for the third year straight, Dave was yelling at us for not having this guy as our number 1 shooting guard in our first edition of these rankings, and now for the second year straight for our rankings, James Harden is the number 1 shooting guard, and Dave gets his victory lap as he called it 2-3 years ago. But that is Dave's rankings for the top shooting guards.
So mine, the one thing I'm going to say before I get into them is I think I'm going to try to keep the trend of my number 9 slot being a very controversial spot.
Please don't. Just don't be an idiot.
It was in the point guards, and I think it's going to be the same here as number 10, I got Lou Williams. Then number 9, Bradley Beal. That's a controversial one. Then Devin Booker at 8. Drew Holiday at 7. Don Mitch at number 6. DeMar DeRozan at 5. CJ at 4. Victor Oladipo at 3. Klay Thompson at 2. And then the man, James Harden, numero uno.
And now for my top 10. At 10, I had Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets. And then at 9, I had Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. At 8, I had Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. Sorry, I was looking at Dave's, and I was like, did we have the same exact one? Then at 7, I had Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. Then at 6, I had Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. Then at 5, I had CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers. Then at 4, I had DeMar DeRozan of the San Antonio Spurs now. Then at 3, I had Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers. Then at 2, I had Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. And 1, I had James Harden of the Houston Rockets. And that all added up to our top 10 being, and Ricky put up the graphic so people know it is the official ones. We have Gary Harris of the Denver Nuggets at 10. At 9, we had Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. And at 8, we had Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. 7, we had Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. At 6, we had Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. At 5, we had DeMar DeRozan of the San Antonio Spurs. And at 4, we had CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers. At 3, we had Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers. And at 2, we had Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors. And the reigning king for back-to-back years of the shooting guards, number 1, the MVP, James Harden of the Houston Rockets. Ricky, the largest jump that we saw from any player, tied for Nick Batum. Nick Batum went negative 12. This player jumped 12 spots. Victor Oladipo, the most improved player of the NBA last year, now the 3rd-ranked shooting guard. We saw this kid explode in Indiana.
He deserves to be, and I think the thing that kind of plays into it the most is what he has said in interviews, that when he was traded to Indy, his first mind process was basically questioning himself in a sense of am I really am I good? Am I bad? Kind of being really down on himself and just kind of flourishing in Indiana. And it's great to see in my eyes, because this is a kid played well in his college days for the Hoosiers. Now he gets to play well in his NBA days with the Pacers, and is someone that Indiana fan base can kind of rally around.
Yeah, he had a massive explosion going from 16 points per game in OKC. People thought he was going to take that jump after being traded from Orlando, playing against Russ. Didn't work out too great. He was fine in OKC, but he really flourished when he had the ball in his hands. He went from 16 points all the way up to 23. That is a jump of 7, Ricky, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
Because 6 plus 7 is 13, and then you got 23. But he jumped up to 23.1 points per game. We saw his defense just absolutely skyrocket. He was always a good defender, but really turned into an elite defender in Indiana. Was also a pretty decent facilitator as well, and he was extremely efficient. 37% from 3, 79% from the line, also 47 from the field. He's a guy that had a massive usage rating as well, 30 usage, and came out on the other side perfect. Offensive rating of 110, defensive rating of 104. That is elite shit right there. And some people might be hesitant because it was 1 year. But the biggest thing that I saw was that he was able to be himself. And maybe that is because he's in Indiana, like you referred to, playing his days in Indiana for the Hoosiers. But he's a guy that absolutely just balled out in Indiana. And I don't think that's changing. He improved his team, both on the floor and off the floor.
Well,
He's a great leader. And then also Indiana improved their team as well through free agency, bringing in guys like Doug McDermott, bringing in, I'm totally blanking on every single addition they did, but they improved their team. It's so late. I'm sorry if I'm missing out on players, but they improved their team. I know Doug McDermott was one of those additions. And I think this team, having a leader like Vic, could be a team that's at least pushing for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Bringing in guys like Tyreek Evans.
That was it.
Bringing a Reek. I mean, that's a big one. I got you, Sean. Also, Aaron Holiday, one of the guys that they brought in via the draft. But for me, like, there's a reason why the Pacers were in a situation for Sean to bet his car and lose his car, for a situation now that Sean is sitting there going, you have them as an Eastern Conference Finals team right now, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I might have jumped the gun. That was pre-Kawhi trade.
But what I'm saying is, like, because
I'm high on Indiana.
Because of Vic, there are very high expectations for Indy this year.
Yeah.
They are, for me, they're a top 4 team in the East. Like, the question is, I mean, we already talked about this with Jake, but the question is, for me, if they take the 3 spot from a Philadelphia team this year, Philadelphia falls back. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that could happen in the regular season. And there's a reason why they took LeBron James and that weaker roster that LeBron James had around him to 7 games in the first round. So, I mean, to me, Vic is the main reason why Indy is in the situation they are, and he deserves to be one of the top 10, top 5 point guard or shooting guards in the NBA.
The thing, too, is he came out in the playoffs and performed excellently.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't consistent in the playoffs because you look at, I think it ended up being...
and I mean, it was a blocked shot that should have been a goaltend, which should have
But even then,
the
I
second
mean,
round.
you look at Game 3 to Game 5, he was under 20 points for those games. But other than that, 32 on 57% shooting and 66% from 3 with 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals in Game 1, then coming back with 22 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, shooting 50% from the field. Then in Game 6 and 7, 28 points, 30 points on great shooting. He had 13 rebounds in Game 6, 12 rebounds in Game 7. He also had a triple-double in Game 6 with 4 steals. I mean, he balled out. He wasn't consistent, but also that was his first time in the playoffs as a Pacer and in this new role. I know he was in the playoffs with Oklahoma City, but this is a guy that showed out in the playoffs. He was a guy that didn't crumble like we've seen before with Toronto when they were going up against LeBron James. He went up against LeBron James, looked him dead in the eye, and took his ass to 7. I was wrong, and Victor Oladipo deserves some respect. He got it in our rankings. Maybe some people will think it's a little too out of hand, but also I think it's very well warranted. This kid is still very young. He's 26. He just turned 26. Happy birthday. May the 4th be with you, Victor Oladipo. You turned 26. You're still young. You're still growing. And this is why he went number 2 in that draft. Should have been the number 1 pick over Anthony Bennett. This is a guy that,
probably should have been.
I know this
Jeez, could you imagine him with LeBron?
It'd be stupid. Maybe it wouldn't, though. Maybe this is the best situation for him.
Because, I mean, they had Kyrie at the time, didn't they? I know I'm derailing it here, but they had Kyrie. Shoot. Kyrie and Vic.
Kyrie, Vic,
and then LeBron comes in.
Yeah. And then Caleb would come.
Or he would have been in that T-Wolves deal, and he would be on the T-Wolves right now.
Well, it'd be Wiggins or Vic.
Or it'd be both of them, because Bennett was in that deal, and then Bennett got waived.
That's true.
So he could have been a T-Wolf right now with Jimmy Butler, with Wiggins. Damn, that'd be good.
Well, maybe they don't make that move.
Maybe they don't. But the thing that I find funny is the guys right below him, and CJ, this isn't all on him, but first off, CJ, their team crumbled in the playoffs. And then DeMar DeRozan.
That wasn't because of CJ.
No, I'm not saying it. That's why I said it. It's not because of CJ.
There,
But then you see DeMar DeRozan were basically apples to apples. Vic took LeBron to 7. DeMar DeRozan got swept. Like, that I find funny with the next 2.
And some people will be pissed off because, again, it's team basketball. But
exactly. But, I mean,
Victor was a very strong leader.
The Raptors didn't show up.
Well, Vic is a strong leader. And, again, we got to talk about potential. We've seen consistency out of C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum's a top 5 shooting guard. But I look at Victor Oladipo, he is one of the best two-way players now in the NBA.
Yeah.
And he's just going to get more comfortable in that role. And that's why I have him that high. And honestly, if someone, I don't think it'd be too crazy. I think it'd be crazy to move him down. I don't think it'd be as crazy to say that you could possibly put him above Clay. Not saying that I would. Not saying I would.
I mean, Clay is the thing that Clay has that, and I'm going to compare this to the Roberson discussion that you had, is Roberson has the elite talent of defense. Not only is Clay a great defender, he is elite, and to me, the most important skill in this NBA is three-point shooting. Like, and that's the thing that I would. That's why Clay. I would say that's a bit of a reach if you were going to put Vic above Clay, because Clay is the perfect guy for this NBA.
But he's we say that because he's on the best team right now.
I mean, he's not like you would you were saying about Tony Snell. If Tony Snell wasn't a 3-and-D player, like wasn't just a 3-and-D player, JR would have been lower. Clay, we talk about his threes, we talk about his defense, but he's not just like, he's a 3-and-D and that's it.
No, and Clay's a ridiculous scorer. I mean, we've seen him pop off for a stupid amount of points. Again, Clay is still my number 2, but I'm saying I think the argument of flipping Clay and Vic is more substantial than lowering Vic below a guy like CJ and DeRozan, because again, we talk about potential.
I'd be on the other side of that argument.
We talk about potential so much, and Vic just came in and was elite on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I would. To me, keep him right at 3, but I could make a case more for CJ to jump him than him to jump Clay.
CJ's good defensively,
yeah,
but I think they're same level offensively. Vic gets the edge there. DeRozan's probably better offensively. But Vic is much better defensively.
No, exactly.
And he gets the edge there. And again, we're talking about potential. Those guys are 27 years old, or older than 27 now. I think DeRozan's even in his 30s. I don't know where CJ is age-wise. CJ is 26. Oh, shit. He's the same age. I always forget how young he is. Damn.
Yeah, he was on that Lehigh team that took down Duke.
Yeah, good on him. Fuck. Was he drafted in the same year? Yeah, fuck, same year, 2013 draft. Shit.
Someone's already commented about it.
Yeah, someone's already shit talking about it. But Vic, again, we've seen CJ hit his maturation point much sooner than we did Oladipo. I think that's why I think McCollum's much older. I think McCollum's probably peaked where maybe Oladipo has peaked as well. We just saw his peak now finally. Where CJ, he's been averaging 20 since he was 24 years old. Back in 2015, where Oladipo has struggled to find his footing consistently, and maybe now that he's found that footing, maybe he'll even be able to push off of that and jump up more. And also, he's not dealing with Dame as well. I mean, Dame takes over the ball so much. Dame is such a fantastic scorer, not having to deal with that and being the guy on a team, and clearly the guy on a team, unlike CJ is, maybe that gives another benefit to Oladipo. Anyways, we'll move off the Oladipo talk and the Oladipo love fest. We talked about that for 14 minutes. But let's move to a couple guys. We got DeMar DeRozan switching teams. We got Bradley Beal, who I feel was a little disrespected by you at 9. We got Donovan Mitchell, a new arrival. He was pretty high. You had him the highest at 6. We also have Devin Booker. He dropped at 1 spot, but still in the top 10. Gary Harris. Throw out some of these guys. Talk about them. Why you personally ranked them as high as you did. You probably want to start with Don Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, for Donovan Mitchell, I am the most I'm the highest on him coming in because Jake, he's the real rookie of the year. Deal with it. But I mean, for me, I just feel where this Jazz team was last year, they're just going to be better this year. They're going to be better. They added great players, like with Grayson Allen was a huge draft pick that I love that they added, and I can't wait to see Mitchell grow into that second year and where he takes this Jazz team, because I feel like all these other guys, like you mentioned, are kind of getting older. I'm not saying like old, but older. He's the youngest. Him and Dev Book, I think, are the youngest of our top 10. Maybe Gary Harris is in there. I don't really know off the top of my head.
Gary is younger than Donovan. Or sorry, Gary's older than Donovan.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, the youngest then are Dev Book and
Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell, and it's like you mentioned with Devin Booker, where he's just scoring and doesn't have any mainly anything else. Whereas Donovan Mitchell is a more rounded player, so I can't wait to see what he does this year and then future years with the Jazz too.
Yeah, I can definitely see an argument, and some fans might get pissed off of us that we don't have Devin Booker higher, which is totally fair. I mean, he's a guy that averaged 25 points per game as a 21-year-old. I mean, the sky's the limit. If we're talking about potential being a pushing point for players, then potential is written all over Devin Booker's face. There's a guy that came in and scored 70 points in a game. Totally understand if you have that argument, because he's also increased. He's gotten better. He's taken more shots and improved his percentages. Went from 34 to 36 to 38% shooting from three. That's better than Victor Oladipo. He went from 42% and has stayed pretty much consistent throughout his career, field goal percentage wise, but even increased that by 10%, going from 42 to 43% there. And he's also improved his scoring ability as well. And he's also taken on more ability facilitating the ball. We saw that last year. He's increased his assist percentages. But the biggest thing with Devin Booker is, one, he's not on a good enough team to see how he would do in a situation like Donovan Mitchell was last year in the playoffs, being a fantastic leader. We haven't been able to see that, and that's not Devin Booker's fault. We're probably docking him unfairly because he isn't on a great team. But also, I don't think we're docking him unfairly when he has a 115 defensive rating. He's a guy that goes out there and he's not a great defender in any sense of the word. He's gotten worse defensively. His defensive win shares have gone down, not crazy by any amounts, but 0.7 to 0.6 to 0.6. Then you look at his defensive box score plus minus, went from negative 2.4 to negative 2.7 to negative 2.4. He's not growing as a defensively, and again, defensive box score plus minus is when he's out on the floor, so that really doesn't do much with your team. I just want to see Devin Booker in a situation like Donovan Mitchell. Again, that's not Devin Booker's fault, and if we see him at some point in his career, hopefully, get to that point where he's in the playoffs, he is the number one guy on that team, and he's able to ball out, then I think he'll take that rise. But we've seen all the guys above him get to the playoffs, and they have somewhat produced. James Harden clearly has, almost knocked the Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson has a couple rings, if I'm not mistaken. Victor Oladipo, we talked about it earlier. He came in and put up 25 points per game.
He was almost
the
the Kingslayer.
Almost slayed the king. We look at CJ McCollum. Last year, I think he averaged like 32 points against the New Orleans Pelicans.
And the thing I didn't mention about CJ, within the not so distant future, we're going to see him be the guy for the Trailblazers, because I don't think that Lillard is going to be there much longer for Portland. So he's going to be the guy for the Trailblazers.
We'll see about that. Dame is much more of a selling face than CJ
that's
McCollum
what I
is.
think. I think they're going to ship him out, and he's going to be the guy.
A selling point of a franchise. Dame is a star of a franchise. No offense to CJ. He's living in the limelight of Dame right now.
I feel
don't
like
think
they're
he'll be able to claw out of that.
That's the thing I feel like with CJ. That Dame is going to move on, and then the Trailblazer fan base, he's going to be their guy. Not necessarily like he's going to be the selling point, but he's going to be the guy.
I respectfully disagree with that. But again, CJ McCollum came out, was great in the playoffs last year. DeMar DeRozan, I know he's had his struggles at points, but also he's a guy that is
it's going to be a nice change of scenery for him.
But also he's a guy that in the regular season has gone out and put up 27 points per game. He's done better scoring wise than Devin Booker has.
It's just the postseason that's eluded him.
And I also think, and he's been fine in the playoffs. It's just really LeBron. And then also going to San Antonio, I think that's going to help DeMar DeRozan. Drew Holiday last year proved it in the playoffs. We look at Bradley Beal. He's a guy that is growing more, but also I think he's shown in the playoffs before, the year before, last year where the Wizards were in the playoffs and fighting hard in those playoffs. He came out and he was successful. Donovan Mitchell clearly was successful. The only guy that hasn't is Devin Booker. And right below him is Gary Harris, a guy that hasn't gone to the playoffs.
The Nuggets haven't gotten a shot yet, though. Like, to be successful. You know what I'm saying? The Nuggets.
No, they're the Suns.
Like, it's the team. I know.
So
I'm just
that's
saying,
what I'm saying. No, but what I'm saying is Devin Booker is a better player than Gary Harris, and all the guys above him have had shots in the playoffs. So that's why, again, I think we're docking him unfairly. But again, when it's this close coming to players, we've seen these guys in next level situations step up and be big for their teams.
Which is funny because the Nuggets could have, if the Nuggets get like the 7th or 8th spot, we could then be saying like, oh, well, if they get the 8th spot, they're getting rolled by the Warriors in the first series.
Even then, with that, Gary Harris is still, I feel, probably the third option on that team. I still think Jamal Murray is more of an option, and obviously Jokic is more of an option on that team.
But
I think Gary Harris is that third option.
That could change our complexion a little bit, basically seeing
them
in the playoffs.
But the point is, again, no matter how we cut the cheese, the guys above Devin Booker have made it to the playoffs.
Exactly.
Devin Booker hasn't. Devin Booker's still a fantastic player. We just haven't seen him in that next level. That's the only thing I'm just trying to make it clear. And not trying to disrespect him at all.
And I'll be completely honest. On mine, the biggest decision came between 8 and 9 with Dev Book and Bradley Beal, because people are probably like, Ricky, how have you not described why or explained why you have Bradley Beal so low. Really, how I went down was the top 5 is the top 5. Like Harden, Thompson, Vic. Then a little bit of a debate like CJ and DeMar. You can flip them. That's why like I could see it either what I have or what you have for your top 5. Because the only thing we differed on was flipped CJ and DeMar. After that, it becomes a little bit of more of a debate where you have a guy like Drew who he shoots really well. He's almost shooting 50% from the field. Not the best 3-point percentage, but it's not like he's garbage from 3. And he's a guy who has assist numbers like a point guard at the 2.
Yeah, I mean, Drew is playing the point for a large majority of the year last year. And even then, Alvin Gentry said they might move him back. But with Rondo being in during the playoffs, we saw Drew really excel at the shooting guard position. So with the addition of Alfred Payton, a guy who has been a starting point guard, maybe they look for Payton to stay at the point, or be the point guard, and then have Drew seem what he was more naturally comfortable at was that shooting guard position, and he absolutely excelled because he is a good shooter. He can put his body into the basket, and he's also a fantastic defender. Drew Holiday is kind of just a little bit of an enigma right now because, again, we don't know what he fully is because he's been a guy that has been a second weapon, but now he's kind of looking more as a piece next to AD because people saw that contract when it first came out for Drew Holiday, like, why the fuck are they giving Drew Holiday that much money? But I think now after this playoff, we saw what Drew Holiday can do. Now he's got to do that for a full year consistently. And maybe Pelicans fans think he's underrated, and if that is the case, then that's totally fine to have your opinion be that. But I think that Drew, if he's able to come out and do exactly what he did or near exactly what he did in the playoffs, people are going to definitely take notice of him, and maybe he does make that jump over to DeMar DeRozan and CJ McCollum like a Victor Oladipo did. Because Drew, I feel like he hasn't really gotten his feet settled, even though he's been a pro for such a long time. He's still, 28 years old. He's a guy that has bounced around teams. His teams have changed so much. He hasn't been healthy. He finally played 81 games, first time since 2010 since he's done that. So now finally being healthy, if he's able to come out there and prove it again, I think that's going to be massive for his career, and maybe he will take that jump.
And then like there's Don Mitch, where Don Mitch may be the one where people go, Ricky, you're way too high on him. You're way too high having him at 6. But for me, I just look at it's like compared to him to Bradley Beal, it was this guy came in and with his Utah team as a rookie took down the triple-double king in Russell Westbrook. He took down Russell Westbrook, and you guys, you went to 6, but you had problems against a team that LeBron, and I know LeBron's the king, and I'm not saying Bradley Beal's anywhere near LeBron, but Toronto got swept by Cleveland. You guys lost to DeMar DeRozan and the Raptors, whereas Don Mitch came in, led his team, and they knocked off a higher-seeded Thunder team. So I'm like, okay, I'm higher on Don Mitch. Then it came down to the decision of Dev Book versus Bradley Beal, and for me, I look at it, Dev Book, and mainly you can say maybe I'm looking at the scoring too much. He averages more points per game.
Who?
He's got Devin Booker. He's got about 2 points per
I thought
game.
You were saying Bradley Beal. I apologize.
Yeah, Dev Booker averages more points per game. He's got a better percentage from 3. However, the percentage from 2 for Bradley Beal. Again, and that is, like in this NBA, the 3 ball is going to play into it. And plus, I think a little bit too, and I will not be afraid to say this, is I have maybe a little bit of a negative bias with the Wizards in general, mainly with Wall and Beal, with what's been going on in that toxicity between those two guys that we've seen year after year who's going to be the alpha. It doesn't matter. You're both not the alpha because your team's an 8 seed in the East.
Okay, they were an 8 seed last year, and that was mainly due to John Wall's injury.
Yeah.
And when
which some people would say that, the team looked better with Bradley Beal out there without John Wall.
Well, they clearly didn't because they won less games. I mean, we look at what they did in 2016, 2017. They were 49-33. They were a 4th seed. Both of them were healthy. And both of them were fantastic. I think that isn't that big of a deal. Now, is that locker room great? No, but they got rid of Gortat, who was clearly butting heads with John Wall. Is bringing in Dwight Howard good for that locker room? I don't think so. But do I think that John Wall and Bradley Beal can work together? Yes. They've proven it before. They've won 40 games before. I think if they're both healthy, they can do it. And I think that's the biggest question mark with them because Wall went down this year and Bradley Beal before 2016, 2017, and 2017, 2018, he was struggling to stay healthy. He played 56 games, then 73, then 63, then 55. A big part of his career has been plagued with injuries. Now, if he's past that and he's able to at least come back and continue to stay healthy, that's going to be great. But then John Wall also needs to be healthy, and those two need to be out there on the floor and see what they can bring them and give to him. And I think Bradley Beal is a guy defensively. He's not great, but he isn't horrible. He's a very good defender, I would say. Or I would say he's a good defender, not very good, but he's a good defender. And he's a guy that at his peak, when he's getting fed by John Wall the ball, he is an elite shooter. He can shoot near 3%, 41% from three. And this guy's still only like 25 years old. I see him topping out near Devin Booker's 25 points per game, but possibly more efficient and also on a better team. And that's why I have Bradley Beal higher. And yes, am I worried about the locker room? Yeah, but also...
Another thing that I will say about the better team thing really quick is that we talk about the East and how weak it is compared to the West, and there's a West-East thing too, where, yeah, the Suns might not be the best team, but they're going against tougher teams top to bottom than the East is.
The Wizards and Suns play a 7-game series. Who are you taking?
The Wizards.
And how many games?
Probably, I'll say 5.
Yeah.
Say 5,
Come on.
maybe 6.
It doesn't matter about the East and West. One's clearly a better team.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we're going to say,
that's
like,
and it's not due to the shooting guards on the team. If you flip them, the Suns still suck, and the Wizards are still going to win 40 games.
That's all.
But I'm still saying...
That's not Bradley Beal or Devin Booker's fault.
That's what I'm saying, is that, again, you flip them, they're still, one team's still clearly better.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, though, is that we have these guys on their teams. And Bradley Beal, when healthy, has been efficient, putting up near the same amount of points as Devin Booker, and also their team is winning. I think that is, and also he's a better defender, and it's accredited to Bradley Beal, and just to some parts to Bradley Beal. And this is one of the teams, the Wizards, that had in 2016, 2017 one of the best starting lineups. Bradley Beal was a part of that, and they didn't have John Wall last year. They didn't have him consistently out on the floor. If they have him out here consistently on the floor, they're going to be a 5th seed in the East. This is a team that struggled and dealt with injuries, and if they're able to get rid of some of the negativity in that locker room, and maybe Dwight Howard's able to clean up his act, and maybe he does bring some positivity to that locker room and brighten things up, then maybe this is a team that even wins more games and climbs up to the 3rd seed. This is still a very young team. John Wall is still fairly young. He's still in his prime. Bradley Beal is still young. He's only 25 years old. This is a team that could still make a jump, and I think Bradley Beal is a guy that deserves to be in that C.J. McCollum, Bradley Beal, and Drew Holiday rankings rather than the Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Will Williams rankings, because Bradley Beal is a consistent starter. He's more proven than Devin Booker, and also one part of Devin Booker's game is that he's getting a shit ton of shots. He is putting up shot after shot after shot. This is a kid with a massive usage rating, and I should have pulled up his stat page to get a correct stat before I started going on this rant, but he's a guy that last year had a 31 usage, and that's the largest amount that we have said on this podcast so far. Bradley Beal usage percentage is 27. Like, there's a massive difference between there. If Bradley Beal is more efficient, and he's putting up near the same amount of points, he's turning the ball over less, he's a better defender. So Bradley Beal, I think, should be getting more respect, and it's not really worried about the Wizards because, again, I think you put him on the Suns, and he's getting the same amount of usage. He's going to do exactly what Devin Booker is at probably a better defender, and he's also older. He's more mature, at least in his NBA years. So I think Bradley Beal getting a little bit disrespected, but he ends up at 7. So, any final thoughts, Ricky?
No, for me, I mean, the only thing that I wonder is Gary Harris moving forward for our rankings, because he was a guy that last year was 16. The year before was he? I don't even know.
He's 6. He's 6 ranked jump. So
he was 21 in 2016.
Oh, okay.
He was 16 last year. This year he's 10. Is he a guy that we maybe see after this year fall back into the 11 through 20 range? Like, that's the only thing that I look at. What if someone like Luka jumps up into the top 10 and bumps him out? That's the only thing I can think with these rankings moving forward, where Gary Harris will be the only one that drops out, and then whether or not like a Drew Holiday switches over to point guard next year.
Nuggets are so bad defensively, it's hard to judge how good of a defender Gary Harris is, but he has shown tools, at least on a one-to-one guarding basis, that he is a good to very good defender. And also he is a guy that you look at his true shooting, and guards aren't supposed to shoot 61%, 59% true shooting wise. Like the only guys that do that and consistently, like Steph Curry. I'm not saying that as like that's just a fact. I'm not saying that Gary Harris is on the level of Steph Curry. When you look at true shooting, he is near the level of Steph Curry's output. I think Steph's near 65. But if you're shooting 60% true shooting, it's something special. And Gary Harris is a guy that in this highly offensive team in Denver that is going to get better with age, because Jokic is 1 year older, Jamal Murray's 1 year older, Gary Harris is 1 year older. We might see the building of an elite shooter where Gary Harris might be a guy that's scoring 18 a night on 50, 40, and then 85. I mean, and the only guy I think to do that last year was Cat, to put up 18 plus points on 50% shooting from the field, 40% shooting from three, and then also 85 from the line. He's a guy that does a lot for a team. He's a guy that can play team defense. I think the biggest question, though, he might be held back by the poor defensive team defense for the Denver Nuggets. I don't think he's going to fall, Gary Harris. I think he's a guy that's going to stay around that. Maybe he falls to 11 at worst, but he's a guy that's going to stay in that, I think, 8 to 11 range for a while. Gary Harris is just going to get better and better, and that's the fun part about shooting guards. When we first started this back in 2016, this was easily the weakest bunch of players that we had. And J.J. Redick has moved down throughout the years. D. Wade is not even on the list anymore. He might be going to China. Tyreek is not on the list anymore. Avery Bradley's not on the list. Batum's fallen off. Jordan Clarkson was on this list. Monta Ellis was on the first list. We've gotten rid of a lot of bad and a lot of old in this shooting guard list, and we see a lot of youthful faces like Donovan Mitchell, like Devin Booker, like Gary Harris, even Bradley Beal and C.J. McCollum. This list is going to get better and better, and what was once one of the weaker positions that we talked about really coming up and really looking as an up-and-coming list. But those are our top 30 starting shooting guards for the 2018-2019 season. If you got any gripes, leave them in the comments down below. Even hit us up on Most Valuable Pod on Twitter. We know our buddy Eric Kwan hit us up with some findings. I think he wanted Lonzo, Chris Dunn, and who was the other guy? That was I think it was Reggie Jackson. Maybe. I think he wanted those three higher. And some other. I think like he wanted Bledsoe lower. But we love your opinions. Hit us up on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod. Leave them in the comments if you feel like it. Also, don't forget to check out mostvaluablepodcast.com. Don't miss any podcast segments, full podcast articles that we post up there. Also, don't forget to check out patreon.com. We had a patron on this week. We had our boy Jake talk Philadelphia 76ers. It was a blast, per usual. We are,
I think we're going to have Z on later this month.
I think it's the 24th you texted me.
I think so.
So we're excited to have our boy Z on
I sent you the Google Calendar invite.
Sweet. I'm excited to talk to our buddy Z. So if you do want to be a patron, check out Patreon.
The 24th, yeah.
Cool. I'm trying to do an outro here. Thanks for keep butting in, douchebag. Anyways, if you want to be a patron like Z and Jake, head up patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. And maybe Ricky won't be there that day to cut out my intros. So, but for Ricky Widmer, Dave will be back next week. And for Jake as well, I'm Sean Anderson. And we'll see you next time.